Thank you. Thank you. Tom, thank you once again for a very special introduction. And I said this morning, thank you for providing an opportunity for Brooke and I to actually spend some time together this morning. Thank you for letting my dad actually be here so we can see each other. We sometimes miss each other in the 48 hours that I'm home, not because of anything intentional, but because of the hectic schedule. Now, this morning when I talked to you as your senator and as a candidate for re-election. I'd like to take those hats off at lunch. It's not about politics. This is Richard Burr, the American. I'd like to talk about our country, past, present, future. I'd like us all to think back over 200 years ago when this country was formed. And more importantly, why? The deep distrust of a bureaucracy of excessive taxation, the inability to have the freedoms and the liberties that many wanted but couldn't find where they were, and America was formed. They were driven away because of what their desires were, and more importantly, the better life that they thought was in store for them. Our country, though young, struggled to migrate from one coast to the other coast over its emergence, to explore the treasures and riches of this new land. Not without difficulty. The merger of a population into a Native American population was not always smooth. And as we look back, in many cases, we'd like to change that history to some degree. But the strife didn't stop with that. It led to the bloodiest war, the Civil War, where states fought against states, where families fought against families, where in some cases brothers fought against brothers. Lincoln, at the time president, understood that this young country had to move forward. As Southern soldiers left the Civil War, he actually sent them home with their rifles because he knew that that was an essential piece to their ability to continue life and to move forward. Read the speeches of Lincoln after the Civil War, where he went out of his way, speech after speech after speech, to refer to one nation. Now remember, this is a time that our leader could have easily chosen to be punitive to the South. And Lincoln not once chose to use the role of president to continue to divide a country. His focus was on one nation. And he understood that his role as president at that time, at that point, was to pull two sides together to move forward. Quite a unique individual. Walk with me, if you will, through the United States Capitol. Most of you have been there. Not all of you have been there for a night tour with me. To walk into that hall it's now called Statuary Hall, where the House of Representatives used to meet. Most people don't realize that the Capitol was a creation of a bill in Congress called the Residence Act, passed in 1790, back when bills used to be one page. And that bill said this, that by the year 1800, the government would build a building to house, the country would build a building to house the government. Government then defined as the House, the Senate, the Library of Congress, and the Supreme Court. One building. It was actually a building on the south end, a building on the north end, joined by a rotunda. The year 1800 came and there was one building built. There was no southern building, there was no rotunda. So let me point out to you that we have a rich history of intending to do things on time but not completing them. This is not something that's just happened recently. Congress appropriated $500,000 more for the completion of the construction. And before the British were nice enough to come and burn the Capitol, we had completed, by 1822, the South Building, the North Building, and the Rotunda. But as a country grew, so did the number of states and so did the need for representative government. And it was shortly after the 22 completion that the architect of the Capitol began his plans about a new House chamber and a new Senate chamber, doubling the length of the United States Capitol and architecturally making the dome way out of proportion. And it was during this period that they brought in an Italian artist, Costantino Burr, to, through artwork in the nation's most important building, begin through pictures to describe what was important up till that point in American history. So as you stand in Statuary Hall and you're on that spot that John Quincy Adams' desk was when he was a member of the House of Representatives after he was President of the United States, you understand the unique history that's in there. But it's not until you walk into the new House chamber, the one that you see on TV today, and you look around at the significance that's there. One that jumps right out to you is the picture of Lafayette. Why in the United States House chamber would there be a portrait of Lafayette? If he hadn't been there, we wouldn't be here. I'm not sure there's anything more significant than that. As you go to the other end of the Capitol, to the Senate chamber, and you realize that decorated around that chamber are busts of our country's vice presidents. And when you step off the Senate chamber into the president's room, which was an add-on as they continued construction, the House moved into their chamber in 1855 and the Senate in 1857, again, long before the war. They designed a room where a president can go and sign every bill passed by Congress. Then probably 3 in any session of Congress, Paul. And as you look around the president's room at what Burr painted, you realize that there are 5 figures, and that those 5 figures represent the president's first cabinet. Don't tell me we can't cut. But there's nothing more moving than to stand in that rotunda and to look up at that ceiling 182 feet up, to see the fresco that Costantino Burr painted and completed in 1863, where it depicts American history to that point. The significance of agriculture, the significance of the Iron Age, the significance of technology and innovation, the fact that George Washington is the centerpiece, and it's called the Epiphysis of George Washington. In other words, his ascension to heaven. George Washington draped in a purple cloth. On his right and left, 2 angels. 13 people complete the ring, significant of the 13 original states. What do you draw from it? What do Americans today draw from